So your favorite podcast is taking a week off, huh? Oh, it's Thanksgiving. I gotta spend time with my family. Me. Well, bump that. Kev BKA Beloved is here. Give me my theme music. Welcome back, everybody, to the Kev BKA Beloved podcast. I'm your host, Kev BKA Beloved, coming to you for this Thanksgiving week. Happy Thanksgiving to y'all. As mentioned before, instead of taking a full-blown break, I'm just going to come to y'all a little bit early. So, full transparency, I'm recording on Monday of Thanksgiving week, meaning the Eagles and Chiefs game has not happened yet. That is going to be very relevant for later in the podcast. But for today's episode, we got so far who's leading the award races, a Super Bowl winner power ranking, who had the best and worst loss of the week, and somebody in the NFL is musty, and we got to get to it. But first, since again I'm recording Monday of a sports podcast supposed to come out Wednesday, one of the downfalls of doing a sports show and being a sports content creator is the sports world moves so fast that even if you miss by a day, 3 different sports stories will happen in the meantime, right? Well, that actually segues us perfectly into the first segment of the day, things that happened immediately after last week's podcast. First and foremost, apparently Patrick Mahomes is musty, or at least he has musty tendencies. For some reason, completely unprovoked, Patrick Mahomes decided to reveal to the world in front of God and everybody that he wears the same pair of drawers for every Chiefs game that he has. Ladies and gentlemen, Patrick Mahomes was drafted in like 2017. That is 6 years of must just built up in his bloomers. Come on, y'all. Like, what are we doing? I understand. Look, I'm a former athlete myself, played through high school and college. Everyone has their superstitions, but I draw the line once it comes to things like hygiene. And for a quarterback who signed for $500 million, father of 2, maybe 3 by now, I don't know. He keeps Brittany pregnant as much as he can. Star of a franchise, face of the league, to unprovoked go out there and admit to mustiness. I hope to God that the entire Chiefs locker room roasted him relentlessly for admitting that in public if they haven't already been doing it, because that's just nasty. Come on, Pat, get some new draws. It's in the budget, I promise you. Thing number 2 that happened immediately after the podcast last week, Draymond Green out here choking niggas. When I tell you this happened immediately after I was done recording, very literally, cut the camera off, went to go take my post-podcast poop, I turn on Twitter, the first thing I see is Draymond got Rudy Gobert in a sleeper hold. Yo, what is happening? What is happening? And at this point, it happened so long ago that we already have the punishment, and I can't even take place in the how long should he get discourse, because that's been beaten to death, but I'm gonna try it anyways. 5 games simply is not enough. It just isn't. John Morant got what, 25 for showing a gun on Instagram the second time, or a toy gun, or whatever he claims it was. And they claimed that was because of reputation. Who has a worse reputation for this type of behavior than Draymond Green? He just got suspended in the playoffs for stomping on Sabonis, the most infamous final suspension of all time for kicking LeBron in the nuts. Not to mention, there are compilations upon compilations of unprovoked violence by Draymond Green. And he wasn't the least bit remorseful for it afterwards. And you can't even say that it wasn't malicious or had malicious intent. The score was 0-0. The dust-up just happened. Rudy Gobert wasn't even involved in the initial incident. The initial incident started with Jalen McDaniel and Klay Thompson, and then here come Draymond. All he saw was Rudy, and he must have just been waiting for that opportunity because he just had to put my man in the sleeper. I think Dana White should give Draymond a call, obviously. Clearly, he got some free time now since he got suspended. Might as well pull him up to the UFC. But yes, 5 games is simply not enough time. And I'm never the one to say, you didn't punish the athletes enough. You need to punish them more. But come on now, Adam Silver and Joe Dumars. Y'all know that Draymond is going to continue this type of behavior for the rest of his career. He pretty much said that on his IG story after the game. So unless you do something to deter this behavior, it's only going to continue to happen. Speaking of which, to the Golden State Warriors front office, fans, team, this is your fault. And I want y'all to know this is your fault. Draymond Green has been on the Warriors doing this very type of behavior his entire career. Granted, his element of toughness is the very reason that the Warriors dynasty is as successful as it is. I stand by that the entire time. And unless he does something irreversibly stupid and unforgivable, he's going to end up in the Hall of Fame because of it. We all have eyes, and we know that without Draymond, this Warriors team wouldn't be what it is. The reason why you're able to build a championship contender with mostly outside shooting is because you have a defensive anchor and offensive playmaker. Playmaker isn't, hopefully the people who are listening to this know ball and know what I mean by playmaker on offense. It doesn't mean he's Chris Paul throwing out dimes or Steph Curry shooting. Hopefully you actually watch basketball and know what I mean when I call him a playmaker, right? Without Draymond, the engine doesn't go. And in order for Draymond to go, he has to be at least some level of provocative and aggressive. Prime example, he played my Celtics in the finals 2 years ago now. That game 2, 3, whatever game that was, where he basically went out there and bullied the Celtics all game long, took everyone out of their game, specifically Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Game was over, they ended up winning that game and it was done. That's what Draymond does. And I get it. But you know what didn't happen that game? He didn't get ejected. He didn't choke nobody. He didn't kick nobody in the nuts. He ain't stomp nobody. So clearly, he has some level of restraint that is in there somewhere. But because the Warriors have yet to deal him out a punishment substantial enough that keeps him at that level, this is only going to continue. They just gave him $100 million in the offseason. So what motivation does he have to stop? Added with the only 5-game suspension that he just got. Come on now. This is only going to continue until the day Draymond retires. And lowest of keys, the Warriors fans I know are sick of it. Now, I think that has more to do with the fact that Draymond doesn't look like the same player anymore. We'll see when it comes to the playoffs if that's still the case. But I think that has more to do with it than I can't believe he's stomping on people, because y'all been defending him for the past decade. So now that he's declining, don't act like you're sick of it now. Number 3 of things that happened immediately after the podcast. Angel Reese is suspended, kicked off the team, not on the team. Who knows? And that's the point. Angel Reese, not with the LSU Tigers for who knows why. For all 2 of you who don't know who Angel Reese is, superstar forward for the LSU Tigers, was the most famous women's basketball player in the world after the NCAA championship, doing the "You Can't See Me" Tony Ayo, John Cena celebration in Caitlin Clark's face in the championship. Super famous, got a whole bunch of fame and NIL money over the summer. Height of fame, Black empowerment, wonderful, from Baltimore, Maryland, which is going to be relevant for me in about 2 minutes, right? A couple nights back, it was noticed that she did not make the trip with the team to the game that night. Can't remember who they're playing right now. Not really that important. The game before, she was on the bench the entire game. It's a home game, so obviously she was with her team, but she was on the bench, not dressed, not playing. Okay. It's basketball, so resting your players, not that foreign. The game before that, she got benched at halftime, and she had like an 11-7 in the first half. So she was balling. And then she just got benched at halftime. And then after the most recent game, where she just didn't make the trip altogether, head coach Kim Mulkey said to the media, "It's a coach's decision, and that's all y'all need to know for now." Here's where hilarity ensues. There's a bunch of fake narratives out there, a bunch of unconfirmed narratives out there. Some people saying it's her grades. Some people saying the money and fame got to her head. Some people saying it's her boyfriend. I even heard someone allege that she was pregnant. Now, again, it's Monday of Thanksgiving week. It is Monday, November 20th. For all I know, the moment I'm done recording, we're going to get the full story out. But we don't have the actual story yet. We don't know. And that's the part I want us to focus on. We don't know. We have nothing but rumors and speculation. But did that stop some of you hateful, miserable niggas from hating on Angel Reese just because you weren't waiting for the chance to do so? Of course it didn't. It was all type of, man, we didn't see her post narrow workout clip all summer long. Of course she's not on the team anymore. Even though she was playing for Team USA over the summer, you have to see a workout clip. She was at Team USA practice. You could have saw her if you watched the Team USA game over the summer. You could have saw her. Also, there's a whole nother can of worms there about if a player is not posting their workout clips, then magically they're just sitting on their ass all summer is what you're going to assume. There's people alleging that the fame and all that got to her head and changed her as a person, which, like I said before, she's been balling so far. So as far as we see, we don't have evidence. As I was saying, we have no evidence that is true. And this one's the kicker. This is the one that really got me, was when they alleged it was her grades. And this is multifaceted for me. First and foremost, no athlete worth their weight in salt is getting benched because of their grades at a high level sports NCAA level. Would you like to know why? Because they got people for that. Angel Reese all summer long was like, I'm too famous to go to class in person. I have to go online. So if she has to go online, due to her fame, there's no reason for her to be failing these classes, because even if she can't do it herself, someone else could do it for her, like happens with every other major student athlete in the world, except for Josh Dobbs, apparently. So that's one part. So I didn't believe it on that fold. Part two, and shout out to Shannon Sharp, Unc Shay Shay, for bringing this up on First Take. He got to it first, but I was thinking of it the whole time when I first heard this story, but he said it first, so I got to give him credit. It couldn't be the GPA because she got benched at halftime of that game. Kim Mulkey didn't just magically figure out what her GPA was at halftime. Like, oh, wow, you're failing history or whatever the hell class? You can't go out in the second half. Of course that didn't happen. But that story came from Flau'jae Johnson, sophomore point guard on LSU, also rapper, actually pretty good rapper. Not just like athlete rapper good, like actual rapper good. Also was on a lot of that press run with Angel over the summer after the championship, right? Her mom came out and was beefing with Angel's mom on Facebook, I believe, and alleged that Angel had a sub 2.0 GPA, which to me just sounded like a mom throwing a jab at somebody for whatever reason. But hey, everyone has their own interpretation as to what that was, right? But since we're in the business of speculation, apparently, let me throw my 2 cents in there. Here's what I think happened. If you know anything about Kim Mulkey is not the greatest example of a human being. And that's me putting it nicely. Completely throwing Brittany Griner under the bus when she was going through her issue with Russia. Oh, backstory, she was the head coach for Baylor when Brittany Griner was there and won her a championship. Known MAGA Trumper Stumper, right-wing nut. Just had something go down at her press conference where she said, I don't know if it's COVID or a flu, when she was coughing over the mics. A very Rudy Gobert-esque moment from when the pandemic first started, if y'all remember that. I bring all that up to say, Kim Mulkey's, she has her own quirks. Again, trying to be nice. And if you know anything about head coaches, specifically college head coaches, they tend to be a little bit of control freaks too. So let's say it even appeared that Angel changed a little bit over the offseason due to all the fame and fortune and all the notoriety that came to her over the offseason. The person who has to be on that the most is the head coach, because she's trying to win the same thing that she won last year, which is another national championship. And part of that, this isn't specifically to college basketball, this is any sport. Part of that is making sure your players stay, I don't want to say humble, let's call it grounded for now. So if she even suspects anything, she is going to feel the need to deal with it. And as we stated before, she has her quirks and she tends to be a little heavy-handed with dealing with things. So my theory is something happened at halftime of that game where she ended up benching Angel, and that just never got settled. It just never got settled. Maybe it got worse. I don't know what that thing is, but it's just hard for me to believe that something like GPA led to a halftime benching that still has not been resolved and ultimately bubbled over into now my best player is not traveling with the team. That just doesn't make sense. But again, who knows? Maybe we'll have an answer by the time this podcast comes out or the next day. Hopefully we do. We'll get to that next week. Last on the list of things that happened right after we were done recording last week. Sean P. Diddy Combs is a predatory, abusive piece of shit, allegedly, in case he's in the mood of suing people to get some of that settlement money back. For y'all that missed it, his ex-girlfriend of 10 years, Cassie, ended up suing him for charges of sex trafficking, abuse, sexual assault, sexual harassment, intimidation, all types of wild shit, right? Domestic violence, all types of wild shit. 35-page report as to what these charges were and to what the allegations were. Each page is more vile than the next. And then more and more and more information about Puff started coming out. And this is how we ended up knowing, like, as a general public, that, yeah, he did that shit. You know anything about Sean Puff Daddy Combs? He's not really the type of guy to pay people at all, if even in a timely manner. He's not really the paying people type. Ask any bad boy artist what process was like to get their master's, if they even have it at all. The lawsuit happened. His reps came out with a statement saying that the allegations were false and they were going to try and fight it. Diddy gave her a settlement 2 hours later. I wish I was joking. No, 2 hours later, the settlement was agreed upon and sent. And apparently the lawsuit was for like $30 million or some crazy shit. So who knows what the final number is? There more than likely there's an NDA involved, so we may never find out what that number is. But that, for most people, myself included, was all the confirmation we needed that, oh yeah, he did that shit. And if you were listening last week, you know where I stand when it comes to predatory and abusive behavior for men towards women. Fuck you, die, burn in hell, you predatory piece of shit. Again, allegedly. So, don't get the podcast or me sued. But that type of behavior for men will just never rock with me, will never sit well with me. I don't fuck with men that do that. I hate all men that do that. And apparently, the way Cassie set this up, because of the sex trafficking charge, this opens the door for criminal charges to come on Diddy later. Actually reminds me, for you idiots that don't know how the law works, this was a civil suit that Cassie filed. She didn't file any charges through a police report. And if you want to know why she didn't go to the police against a billionaire and one of the most powerful people in the world, I would implore you to learn how the world works and just speak to a woman who just knows how the world works. Just speak to somebody that knows how the world works. This shouldn't take long to explain to you, I promise. Civil suit was always going to be for the money and for damages because that's how the law works. This wasn't a criminal case. So for you idiots that are like, why would she take the settlement if she felt wrong? Clearly she lying. Shut your dumb ass up. Learn how the law works. And he still might get charged. This still might happen. And speaking of learning how the law works, y'all did the same shit with the Meg Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez case, where it was, how could Meg be charging Tory and trying to throw Tory in jail? Meg Thee Stallion wasn't suing Tory Lanez. That was the state of California versus Tory Lanez, not Megan Pete. I think that's her last name, Pete. But again, because reading must have just missed y'all when we were in class. Some of y'all must have just skipped the reading lesson and comprehension and media literacy. So y'all didn't even attempt to get facts. Y'all just started piling on, spewing misinformation, and just being wrong for the sake of confirming your own bias and being dumb. You did it with Angel. You did it with Meg Thee Stallion. And now you're doing it to K for Diddy and man you don't know and going against Cassie. You want to know what all those situations have in common? You want to take the side away from the women. Oh my God, he's pandering. Yeah, you sent me. If trying to be on the other side of the women that are being harassed and abused makes me a simp, then oh fucking well. Good luck with your left or right hand, niggas. Let's take a quick break and then we're going to get into these NFL questions. And we're back. Thank you everyone who submitted a question for the podcast. If you want to submit your own question, we're going to switch it to Monday morning after the Sunday night football games. Submit your question, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, comment your question. It'll appear in the next podcast just like this. Who are your mid-ish season award winners? I'm going to start from the bottom up the way that NFL.com has them. First up, we have the comeback player of the year. It's Damar Hamlin, safety from the Buffalo Bills. It was his before the season started. If he touched the field one time, it was always going to be his. And a lot of people have gotten really weird about this. I've seen it specifically with Dolphin fans who are caping for Tua. I don't want to just put it on them, but that's the main one I've seen, right? And also people that are just miserable and just want to be contrarian to other things. Guys, we thought Damar Hamlin died on the field. We thought he died. And technically speaking, he did for a couple minutes and was resuscitated and brought back to life. He came back from death. There is no better comeback from that. Who cares how many snaps or games he played this year? Who gives a shit? The award is his. It's his. It was always going to be his. Similar to the Alex Smith situation when he broke his leg. And that was just for a broken leg. Damar Hamlin almost died. And y'all are fighting for a quarterback who technically played 13 or 14 games last year. Or this player that came back from being benched and is now playing. Like, come on now. What are we arguing for? This isn't even an award worth arguing for. Give it to the guy that almost died and let's move on. Next, we got Defensive Rookie of the Year. Right now, my leader is Devon Witherspoon. To start the year, it looked like Jalen Carter was going to run with this. Again, I'm recording this before the Eagles and Chiefs game. And for all I know, he's going to go out there and have like a 4 or 5 sack performance and make this look incredibly stupid by the time this comes out. But as long as the Eagles have him on this weird snap and rotation count, his numbers are going to greatly be affected because Devon Witherspoon is a full-time starter on the other side of Tariq Woolen in Seattle. And he was a playmaker from day one. I'm talking forced fumbles, interceptions, and a defensive touchdown the moment he stepped on the field on national TV against the Giants on ESPN, Monday Night Football. And he's going to have another chance on Thursday to put his skills on display on Thursday night for the Thanksgiving game. And he's got Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel on the other side of him. If he makes plays Thursday, he might wrap the award up on Thursday. And narratively speaking, because again, these are media voted awards, so they're all narrative based. How dope will it be if we get another superstar corner in Seattle? Why wouldn't you want that as an NFL fan? Come on now. Offensive Rookie of the Year, it's CJ Stroud. I feel like I shouldn't have to explain this, but I will anyways. We haven't seen a rookie like this since RG3, Cam Newton. Maybe you got to go as far back as Dan Marino. Like, CJ Stroud is playing at another level for full-time starter quarterbacks. For rookie quarterbacks, he might as well be a mutant, like full-blown X-Men Xavier School for talented and gifted children type shit. Like, he's on another planet right now. Bijan Robinson was the front runner to start the season, and he should have at least gave him a fight. But the Mushroom Kingdom Nepo baby decided that he doesn't like happiness. So he decided, I'm not going to give Bijan the ball. Fucking asshole. I hate Arthur Smith. Defensive Player of the Year, it's looking like Myles Garrett's going to run away with the award, especially if the Browns end up making the playoffs after losing their starting quarterback. Myles Garrett's leader of that defense right now looks like the best defense in football. I would make the argument he's already the best defensive player in football. If he hasn't been the past couple years, he's playing out of his mind right now. Jim Schwartz has done wonders for this man this season. And for whatever reason, he doesn't have a Defensive Player of the Year award yet. So yeah, give my man Myles his award. I skipped over one, my bad. Coach of the Year, I think it should be Mike Tomlin. I know D'Amico Ryans is the front runner, but if Mike Tomlin takes his team to the playoffs, as I understand it, the Coach of the Year is, we thought this team was going to suck. This team does not suck. We gotta reward the coach for it. Because God forbid we just make it best team, best coach, because, that would make too much sense. Can someone explain to me how the Steelers are in playoff contention right now? I know, rhetorical question. The Steelers, with 28 to 30 other coaches in the league, are in Caleb Williams, Drake May territory. But because they have Mike Tomlin, they're going to sneak into the playoffs, and they might even win a game depending on who they play round one. And their offense is unwatchable. More on that later. But if these Steelers team sneaks to the playoffs, give it to Mike Tomlin. And for a future Hall of Fame coach, he doesn't have a Coach of the Year yet. Super Bowl winning coach, future Hall of Famer, yet to have a losing record, doesn't have a Coach of the Year. Let's go ahead and fix that. Come on now. Offensive Player of the Year right now is Tyreek Hill. Another one that shouldn't need explanation, but I'm going to give him one anyways. He's on pace for 2,000 yards still, which is nuts for a wide receiver. I don't care if it's 16 games or 17 games, still nuts. He is the engine that makes the Dolphins offense go, and they're still the number one offense in the NFL. He is the fastest mammal on the face of the planet, I think. Like, we got to put him in a one-on-one race with an actual cheetah and figure this out. He's the best non-quarterback offensive player in the league, and that's essentially what the Offensive Player of the Year award is. So that's the case for Tyreek Hill. And the MVP, this is where the recording before the Eagles-Chiefs game really starts to kick my butt. Because the answer is, while I'm updating shit, we can go ahead and update this MVP as well. Jalen Hurts is currently the odds-on favorite for MVP at plus 250. I guess that's what happens when you beat the last MVP on national television. Best player on the best team in football. Looks like it's going to stay that way for the rest of the year, barring any catastrophic circumstances. So right now, Jalen Hurts is the front runner for NFL MVP, with Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, and CJ Stroud in some order right behind him. Thank you for the question. All right. As the season progresses, do you have any team in mind that may go to the Super Bowl? I will do you one better. I will give you an entire power rankings of the 10 best teams in the league that have the best chance of making it to the Super Bowl. But first, I got to start with the first two out. First two out are Seattle and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, as we spoke on earlier, their offense is abysmal, unwatchable. I hate every second of it. If Cleveland's defense wasn't so fun to watch, I would have changed the channel every time they were on TV. But that defense is going to keep them in pretty much every game and probably win them a couple. They have 2 more games against the Joe Burrow-less Bengals, so they're going to end up making it to the playoffs some way, somehow. And depending on how the rest of the Ravens season goes, their game against the Steelers might not matter, so they might end up winning that one too. Most importantly, they have my current coach of the year, Mike Tomlin, who makes chicken salad out of chicken shit religiously, but still just outside the top 10. Next will be Seattle. They're currently the 6th seed in the NFC. I know, in theory, they're a good team, but every single one of their losses makes you look at them and go, are we sure they don't stink? Like, are we sure? Like, as I'm recording this now, if they go out Thanksgiving night and get their ass kicked by the Niners, would anyone really be surprised? I damn sure wouldn't. They got absolutely shelled by the Ravens. They just lost to a Rams team whose season is hanging on by a thread. They almost lost to PJ Walker and the Browns 2-3 weeks ago. Their offensive line can't hold up very well. Geno Smith has turned back to a pumpkin type moments every now and again. And now he has an elbow arm injury now, so who knows? But you try to find me 7 teams in the NFC that can make the playoffs. So they might just end up being the 6th seed or 7th seed by default. So right outside the top 10. All right, now we can get into the actual 10. Number 10, I have the Cleveland Browns. I didn't understand the overreaction to the Deshaun Watson injury. The Browns have been carrying a subpar quarterback all year long. Whether it's Deshaun Watson or somebody else, Deshaun Watson has not played like a superstar all year long, and he still is 5-1 with the Browns. PJ Walker was 2-1. And their other loss came when their current starter, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, found out 30 minutes before the game started that he was going to be playing against the Ravens, who were statistically the best defense in the league at the time. As a rookie, he had no shot that day. They are going to do what everyone tried to convince themselves that the Jets were going to be able to do and lead with defense, keep these games as ugly as they can, and carry this team to the playoffs. I don't know if they're going to be able to win one when they get there, but they're going to make the playoffs some way, somehow. Number 9, I got the Jacksonville Jaguars. I was skeptical of the Jaguars before they got their head kicked in by the Niners. That only made it worse. That Titans win did not move me in the slightest. They are currently leading the division, so kudos. They're going to end up making the playoffs or sneaking in some way, somehow. But I don't even think they're the best team in their division. That would be team number 8, the Houston Texans. After they beat the Bengals, I was fully convinced that they're going to end up running the table and winning this division, which will end their season at around 12, 13 wins, good enough for the 3 seed, maybe even the 2, depending on how the rest of the season goes for some of these teams. CJ Stroud, his name is pretty much already engraved on the Offensive Rookie of the Year trophy. D'Amico Ryans is the front runner for Coach of the Year. This team is young, they're hungry, they're on their way, they're gonna get there. Number 7, I got the Miami Dolphins. The greatest show on surf didn't exactly make the post-bye week splash that we thought they'd make. However, that defense is starting to come along pretty nicely. Jalen Ramsey has allowed like a 0.00 quarterback rating when getting targeted since he's returned back into the starting lineup. Their pass rush is starting to come back together with Jalen Phillips, Christian Watson. They currently sit at 7-3. Their best win so far is against the Raiders, who they just beat last game 20-13, who fired their head coach 3 weeks ago and were exactly 500 when they came into that game and are obviously below 500 now because they lost. They're still not a playoff team, but at least they finally beat a team that isn't in we should probably tank territory. So hats off to the Dolphins. Number 6, I got the Detroit Lions. So we all know the Lions are good, right? We know they're good. Obviously, they're 8-2. The question is, how good are they? The Ravens game is what really brought that into perspective for me. Because me personally, if I should take you seriously as a Super Bowl contender, I can't see you get shelled in a game against a team that I also think is a Super Bowl contender. It's one thing if you lost. Losing, completely different. Everyone takes an L outside of the 72 Dolphins or the 2007 Patriots. Everyone loses eventually in the regular season, right? But to get absolutely dog-walked and dropped off on the road to the Ravens, turn the radar on a lot a bit. Watching that stinker they put out there against the Bears, who will be having 2 top 5 picks in the draft in April, you can book it. And their loss before that was a loss at home in overtime against Seattle, who we covered earlier, who might not be that good. I don't know, man. I have my concerns about the Lions. I got my concerns. I'm happy for them, but I have my concerns. At number 5, we have the San Francisco 49ers. I have them at the bottom of the top 5 because they're front runners. Let's just call it what it is. If they don't have a lead going into the fourth quarter, they very literally cannot win games. They won't win the game. If 1 or 2 pieces are not in the starting lineup or not playing up to their potential, they will not win the game. We have seen it. And Hufanga, who hopefully I pronounced his name correctly, their starting safety, they're all pro safety. just announced that he's out for the season with a torn ACL. So that's not a great sign. But oh, baby, when they have a lead. Oh, boy, when everything's clicking, they are a buzzsaw, and they can take down almost anybody. They just have to make sure they have that lead first. And just a personal bias of mine, if the limitation of your team is, well, I don't know how good our starting quarterback is going to be today, instant turn off for me. Yeah, I know. Brock Purdy had his perfect QB rating out there last Sunday. Kudos to you. Hats off. Good job. But again, front running. They were winning that entire game. Number 4, I got the Dallas Cowboys. I know they lost to the Niners. I don't care. This version of the Cowboys is a much better version than the Niners played a couple weeks back, and the Niners are a much worse version than the Cowboys played that week. The Cowboys have been humming since that game. Outside of inexplicably losing that game to the Eagles, which I still don't know how they lost that game. It's gonna bother me for the rest of the season. I'm not even a Cowboys fan. How the hell did they lose that game? They have the best pass rush in football. That's actually statistically proven. Analytically, have the best pass rush win rate in the entire league. Dak Prescott is looking like an MVP candidate. Their run game actually starts to look functional. The offensive line is starting to hold up a lot better. Deron Bland is on his way to setting a record for pick sixes in a year and creeping his way into the defensive player of the year discussions. Mike McCarthy is very literally saving his job right now. I like where the Cowboys are headed. That's all I'm going to say. Number 3, I got the Baltimore Ravens. I had them at number 1 forever, but the loss to the Browns in the fourth quarter, allowing Deshaun Watson, who apparently was out there with half a throwing arm, to go perfect in the fourth quarter. I don't care if it was on all 2-yard completions. He went perfect, made the comeback, somehow lost the lead, and dropped one at home. Mark Andrews is out for the year now. Lamar looked like he got his ankle rolled up on or his knee rolled up on somewhere strange on that Thursday night game. So we'll keep that updated. And this is around the Lamar's going to miss 1 or 2 games and possibly be out for the season time of year. So we'll just keep an eye on that. I still love the Ravens, but injuries, and we'll keep an eye on. And tied for first and second is the Eagles and the Chiefs. Again, hate to beat a dead horse. The game hasn't been played yet at the time I'm recording this. So the Eagles-Kansas City game literally just ended. The Eagles won 21-17, and before I update these power rankings, I'm going to insert my preview for the game right here. Patrick Mahomes has a record of 35-8 at home in his career. Andy Reid has a record of 27-4 after a bye week. Historically speaking, there's an almost 84% chance Kansas City wins this game. Looking at history, you'd have to be an idiot to pick the Eagles to win this game. But in the words of the Honorable Slim Charles,
the thing about the old days, they the old days.
The Eagles are flat out the better team than the Chiefs this year. Philly's main weakness is their secondary, and if you've seen the Kansas City receivers, I think they'll be okay. Not to mention that Chiefs offensive line, despite only allowing 12 sacks so far, they've been shaky all year long. And now they got the Philly pass rush coming to town against an already struggling Kansas City offense. They're in for a rough night in their own house. Give me the Birds getting their lick back for the Super Bowl. All right, so it turns out that KC's receivers might be worse than I thought. I got some pretty numbers here. 21% of Patrick Mahomes' incompletions all season long are because of drops. That doesn't count wrong routes run. That doesn't count rush throws because of the pressures. I know they only gave up 1 sack tonight, but that's because Patrick Mahomes is a magician. That's not because the offensive line was holding up. If you watch the game, he was under pressure all night long. He was on the run all night long. That Eagles pass rush is no joke. What I will give Kansas City credit for is they were able to get to Jalen Hurts 5 times. Now, part of that is because he was holding on to the ball for a while, and that knee is a little more hurt than they're letting on, and he wasn't as elusive as he usually is. But credit where credit is due. They were able to get through what I believe is the best offensive line of football. So credit there, right? KC has managed to do the impossible. They have a dysfunctional offense with the most talented quarterback we've ever seen. And it's high time we start admitting that. They simply do. Which is why, instead of being number 2, I have them now at number 3 on the list. Number 2, I'm moving up the Ravens. I still have my concerns about Lamar's injuries, injury to Mark Andrews, and everything I stated before when I had him at 3. And at number 1, it has to be the Eagles. Here they are at 9-1 for the second year in a row. Here they are, most talented team in the NFL for the second year in a row. They did it again. I don't know what to tell you. Here they are again. Did they play a perfect game tonight? Absolutely not. I don't think they played a perfect game all season long. But let me tell you what a lifetime of being a Patriots fan has taught me. The true mark of a Super Bowl champion, and I know this by watching 6 of them my entire life, is knowing how to win in different ways. Hey Tom, for tonight's game, we're going to give Jonas Gray the ball 35 times. Yeah, we just got him off the practice squad, but let's give him the ball 35 times. Cool. Hey Tom, this season we're going to need you to throw for 50 touchdowns. Think you'd do that? Cool. And that's the true mark of a team that is capable of winning a Super Bowl. Philly can give it to you however you want it at this point. And that is to be commended, which is why I have them at number 1. Thanks for the question. Who had the best win of week 1 and the worst loss of week 1? We'll start positive. So the best win is the tie between the Cleveland Browns and the Buffalo Bills. Same general reason with slight variations. I know the analytics nerds don't believe in momentum, but bruh, the Browns and the Bills needed these wins. If after losing your starting quarterback and having to fire your offense coordinator respectively for each of these teams, they came out and they lost to a divisional opponent that they lost to already, which will have them getting swept by a team that they're pretty sure they're better than, oh boy, your season starts to spiral at that point. And I'm not on the side of discrediting the wins, specifically for the Bills, because we would have killed them if they would have lost to Zach Wilson and the Jets. In fact, we already did when they lost week 1 to the Jets, and rightfully so. Not only did they win, their offense looks cleaner. I'll save my apology to Joe Brady for now. Let's see if they make the playoffs. I'll apologize then. Their only turnover on offense was on a Hail Mary at the end of the first half, which might as well have been a missed field goal. We don't even count that. They created 4 turnovers themselves on the other side, and they got Zach Wilson benched, which the good people of New York City and New Jersey area won't admit it, but secretly they're thanking the Bills for that. Never mind. I'm breaking the tie. It's the Bills. The best win of the week was the Bills. They desperately needed that win. You can't lose to the Jets after the week they just had. Worst loss of the week? It's the Bengals by a landslide. Not only did you lose to a division rival getting swept, you lost your superstar quarterback. You are now 0-3 in the division. You were barely 5-5 with Joe Burrow as your starter. And now that he's out for the year, your season's done. And with the way his contract's set up, with the big money kicking in next year, you're going to end up losing some talent this year. Could be a Sam Hubbard, could be a Trey Hendrickson. My bet's on T. Higgins going to be the one out the door. So this was supposed to be the year that you had to get it done from a cap standpoint. And now the main thing that was going to help you get the job done, right out the door. Who knows? Maybe Jake Browning ends up being Tom Brady. I couldn't even get that out with a straight face. Yeah, sorry, Bengals fans. Y'all are fucked. Worst loss of the week. Quick break. We'll get to our closing segment, and I'll be right back. My fellow fat friends, my big back brethren and sisterin, I have a decree. I have an issue that I must bring up with all of you. Our favorite holiday, Thanksgiving, is not being given the respect that it deserves. I am sick and tired of immediately getting into Christmas celebrations and sales and defrosting Mariah Carey's the moment Halloween is over. This holiday needs to be vaunted and exalted to the heights that it deserves. But don't you worry, I have a solution. Music, the power of song. All of the prominent fat musicians come together and we make the first Thanksgiving album. Rick Ross, Fred Hammond, Jelly Roll, Rod Wave. I'm not going to name any female artists for obvious reasons, but whoever you just thought of, yep, her too. We come together, we make this album, so we have something to jam to as we stuff our face with various plates of food that we are going to regret the next day as we have the itis and quite possibly blow up a few toilets. Thank you everybody for listening to this week's episode. Happy Thanksgiving to all. We will catch you all next week.